Hi there, welcome to my channel where I share my science career job hunting experiences, deliver presentations such as this one related to pharma quality documentation and microbiology, and finally improve on my communication skills. I'm an experienced science graduate seeking a return to the lab. As well as here, I can be found on LinkedIn, Twitter and my microbiology blog, so be sure to check those sites out for more information about me. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. If you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button and be sure to share this video if you find it informative or interesting. Today I will discuss the importance of documentation, or as I like to say, if it wasn't documented, well, it wasn't done. I first developed this presentation in 2006 as part of a series of 12 training packages to be delivered to my team each month. Recently, I reviewed the training, included some current references and adapted it so I can present it here to you to help you out. So, let me introduce myself. Who am I? I am Paul Yeatman, and I am someone who is passionate about good manufacturing processes, documentation and sharing my knowledge. I do this by analysing and improving the control processes of manufacturing companies, allowing them to release batches sooner in order for them to operate in an audit-ready state, so they can reduce or eliminate their audit observations and release quality product, which ultimately saves them time and money. I've worked for over 15 years in the pharmaceutical industry, monitoring clean rooms, writing and improving documentation, introducing and validating methods and equipment, training and developing others, leading investigations, conducting audits and controlling their aseptic media fill program, all of which requires robust and easy to read documentation. What is in this presentation for you? By learning why documentation is needed and a little about what makes a good or a bad document, you will be well positioned to properly document what you do, why you do it, and also to improve the existing documentation. Ultimately, this will lead to less, or at least a reduced chance, of an audit citation relating primarily to your documentation and your processes, and lead to improved manufacturing and laboratory practices, saving you both time and money. Very good. As for all presentations, there are a number of aims and outcomes. This presentation will provide you with the following knowledge. Why is it necessary to document everything? What the differences between a well-written and a poorly written document are. The impact of not following procedures. I'll begin with an apocryphal story. At least I'm sure it's apocryphal. I've heard this story numerous times throughout my career. Now let's give it a quick rundown. At one time there were 3 monkeys locked in a room. This room also contained a banana suspended by a cord from the ceiling in the centre of the room. Whenever one of the monkeys grabbed the banana, all the monkeys were subjected to an icy cold shower. After several repetitions of this shower, no monkey in the room would touch the banana. So what we then do is we remove one of the monkeys and add a new monkey in its place. And the new monkey would see the banana and go for it, while the other 2 monkeys would go, "Hey, what's going on here?" and bash him up. That would prevent the new monkey from getting the banana, and the new monkey would quickly learn that touching the banana wasn't permitted. So over time you remove all the original monkeys and you're left with 3 brand new monkeys, which all know very, very strongly not to touch a banana. And the moral of this story is it makes sure you know why you are doing what you're doing the way you're doing it, and if you can see how to do it better, update the practice. Doing anything in a manufacturing or testing environment because it has always been done that way is a recipe for disaster. You must know why you are doing something the way you are. That allows for you to improve the process and to troubleshoot anything that might go wrong. Why do we need to document everything? Basically, in order to reproduce a previous experiment exactly, or a test or a product, You need to do the same thing the same way over and over again. And in order to do that, you use a written procedure. Person A and person B following the same test separated by time should be able to follow the method in exactly the same way and get the same result without trying to figure out what exactly is needed to be done. So it's also not only necessary to document everything if a procedure is stated, you've got to follow it exactly. Auditors like to see adequate documentation and will cite a company with inadequate documentation. Auditors also like to see procedures and instructions followed and will issue a citation if internal procedures are not followed. What we are aiming for is a document that is so simple that it cannot be misinterpreted or followed the wrong way. There are 3 rules of good documentation practice which have been attributed to the FDA and sum up most auditors' attitudes to documentation. If it wasn't documented, well, it didn't happen. If it was documented but poorly, then it didn't happen either. Don't forget rules 1 and 2, ever. And I'd like to add a 4th rule. If what you did was dodgy and you didn't document it, well, that in fact did happen. What makes a good document? A step-by-step document that contains everything and leaves nothing to chance. If you are referring to cheat notes while preparing or conducting a test, then arrange for those notes to be placed into the document you are officially using. A good document should also be clear, as brief as practicable, and leave nothing open to interpretation. You want to be able to hand the document, whether it's a work instruction or a standard SOP or some other official document, to those who are going to use it, and you want the same result at the end regardless of who you use the document, subject to appropriate skills, knowledge and education, of course. What makes a poor document? A non-sequential document that jumps all over the place. So do this and do that. Oh, and also do this before you do that. And if there's a certain prerequisite was met, do this, but that's put at the end of the document. Things like this. For people working in the pharmaceutical and related industries, the person is supposed to have the relevant education, training and experience to make them competent in their role. So you need to assume they have that, but you can't assume too much as well, because you don't want the document to be misinterpreted. The document has inconsistent formatting, so that's more of a look thing, but also having something looking the same makes it easier to read if you're familiar with a whole bunch of documents. A document where 10 analysts would conduct 10 different tests with 10 different results, that's not a good document. You don't want to get to the end of an instruction you have been following and then discover there was a condition that needed to be met. For example, if condition A was met, then you had to follow technique variant 3 when you actually followed technique variant 1. Here, reading a document such as NOA before you actually follow it is always wise, as there is no guarantee that it is a well-written document. And through this training, you'll be able to understand what a well-written document is. So if you do have dodgy documents, you'll now be able to update them so they are well written. Those using controlled documentation are required to have the skills, education and training to accomplish their assigned tasks, so some knowledge has to be assumed. By assuming too much, errors can be introduced into the process. For example, don't assume the operator will know they should only be testing product class A in the level 3 containment cabinets. You have to state this in the instruction if that is a requirement. Fancy bullets, text that changes size or style without a clear reason, for example, title, section, headings or content, they're all fine. They need consistent formatting, but you can't change your formatting within those sections. Tables that change every page or every time they're used, you want to keep your tables consistent as well. Things like this, keep consistent. Your staff will be using a lot of controlled instructions, and consistent formatting helps them complete their jobs more efficiently. The same goes for most techniques used to impart information. For example, my presentations follow a template of title, introduction, body, conclusion, references and appendices, and then a call to action. As we saw in the previous slide, you want a consistent output from your instructions. If 10 different operators test the same sample following the instructions and get wildly different results, your document is poorly written, or either that or something's up with the test sample and you should check out why things are really wacky with your results. The impact of not following procedures. It is difficult, if not impossible, to retrace a process where not followed or a deviation isn't recorded. So this is akin to poor documentation and procedural practices requiring you to follow your documentation. You cannot prove to a regulator or an auditor that a task was correctly carried out. And if you've got a consistent demonstration of not showing you for following procedures, then you've got no foot to stand on to support your assertion that you are following procedures. Because if the auditors observe that multiple people aren't doing the right thing, then there's not much guarantee that everybody else is doing the right thing. And this could lead to products which could be declared adulterated, resulting in a recall or worse. And the worst case for a patient would be death, and for your company it would be, say, delisting or bankruptcy. The following are audit observations known as FDA 483s, and you don't want to get those if you make drugs for the USA. So these are some things that the auditors have written down as what they found objections to. Batch production records do not include complete information relating to the production and control of each API batch. Method validation documentation did not include appropriate data to verify the analytical methods produced accurate and reliable results. Laboratory equipment calibration was not adequately documented. Unsubstantiated claims, overstatement of efficacy, misleading risk presentation, lack of adequate directions for use, omission of material fact. So these are all audit citations relating to the company having poor documentation. So production records don't include complete information. That's not documenting everything you should. Method validation documentation didn't include. That's not documenting enough as you should. Lab equipment calibration was not adequately documented. Again, things weren't written down. And if not written down, they're not done. Unsubstantiated claims, so making claims to either the levels of active ingredients in the products or, say, stability data, or even what the product is effective for. If there's no proof that the product does what it does or it contains what it's supposed to have in it, then it doesn't. Overstatement of efficacy, so saying 200 milligrams per mil of active ingredient when it's only 150, for example. So it comes down to appropriate documentation and testing and investigating what goes wrong if something does go wrong, and updating, say, the labelling on your product if that was at the actual active ingredient level. Misleading risk presentation, so taking sort of a she'll be right approach to adverse effects that might occur with the product. Lack of adequate directions for use, so not adequately describing how to use the product. Again, that's not documenting everything, so it's poor documentation procedures. And omission of material fact. So this one here is my fourth rule, which is if you did do it and it was dodgy, then you did do it. So therefore it is an omission and you can get cited on it. So try not to do any of these, and then you've reduced the chance of being cited, which is good because then it saves you time and money because you don't have to run around addressing issues that shouldn't exist in the first place. You will now know the following: why it is necessary to document everything, the differences between a well-written and a poorly written document, and the impact of not following procedures. I have a link to the PDF version of this presentation in the video notes, and you can always rewind to something you want to hear again. I should note that me presenting on this topic to you online doesn't mean you can take this and train your staff based on it. If you want to do that, I strongly encourage you to employ me to do that, or better still, give me a job in your QA, production or laboratory environments so I can use my skills and knowledge to help you. You could also donate to what I like to call the Save the Paul Yeatman Foundation. I have included a link in the video notes for this. I hope you have found this presentation informative and interesting, and I thank you for your time. The last slide, which I will leave on screen for about 30 seconds, provides references and additional reading. I will also provide any stated links in the video notes.